Hello and welcome back to Life.ev, a podcast that delves into exploring values. This is our episode number 31. I'm your host, Ajit Panikar, and lead an air conditioning company, Nova, and Pure Blue, a tech startup in the air conditioning domain. Join us every Saturday at 11 a.m. for conversations that go beyond business growth, focusing on the values that fuel it. Let's embark on a journey to uncover our true purpose and how we can grow by enriching our lives. Welcome to Life.tv, where we explore values in life and business. I have with me Vivek Asrani, like both of us have been here now for 31 weeks together. Hi Vivek, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Ajit. Wow, 31 weeks. Didn't realize, man, how time flies.
Absolutely. And to some of you who are joining us for the first time, Vivek Asrani is the driving force behind Kemo Fastener Company, a trailblazing company in the industrial fastener sector. What sets Vivek apart is his deep engagement with the exploration of values. For close to 4 years, he has dedicatedly penned his reflections on this topic every week. These insightful thoughts are accessible on his website, vivekasrani.com. Additionally, Vivek has authored the book One Day at a Time Reflections from Times of Silence, which further delves into his journey and insights. This thought provoking read is available on Amazon and his website, offering readers a chance to engage with his profound understanding of values and their role in both personal and professional lives. In today's episode of Life.ev, we pick up a topic being like water. Vivek, let's hear a reflection on this being like water.
Yeah. Ajit, this was one of the fun reflections when I wrote it, and I really enjoyed writing this because uh, I still clearly remember that day when I was sitting and writing this reflection. It just kind of came to me, and I'm going to read the last line of the reflection to start off this podcast. That our strength will come not from our rigidity, but our fluidity. And I think for me, the word fluid in personal and professional in my business life has been one of the guiding words because I have realized that the unpredictability of life, the uncertainty of life, the changing situation and the changing dynamism of life out there, and the changes that happen within me require a complete sense of and a paradigm of fluidity, and hardness and rigidity can actually be a inhibitor to growth and development. So being like water was really a reflection we started off with. And to read the first again line of my reflection, I said I was marveling at the quality of water. It has the ability to take the shape of any container without losing its essence. Very often we say that water takes the shape of any container, which is the obvious quality of water that we all admire. But the second aspect of it, which I brought out in the reflection, was yes, it takes the shape of any container without losing its own essence. And I think that really is powerful. So, when it takes the shape of a container, why is it marvelous? Because it teaches us adaptability. And that's what happens to us in life. We're put in different situations. Sometimes we're put in different buckets of life, which we have to, problems or challenges or opportunities that we have to respond to. And it requires a very different approach. Uh, why is it that very often we don't succeed or don't do as well in a particular type of situation, whereas we did very well in different kinds of situations in life? Because different situations require us to bring out different qualities from within. So, first of all, like water, we need to be adaptable. Second is we need to recognize that yes, we may want to choose the framework and the container we want to be part of, but very often the shape of the container is very different and it changes very fast. If we don't change fast enough, we will be left behind and could face tremendous consequences. For example, let's take technology. We saw technology coming. Many of us were looking at the internet, we were understanding what it means, we were playing with it, we were using it and consuming it for personal use. We started using accounting packages, which were now on the cloud, or not even on the cloud. They were just on. moved away from the manual system, but very few of us looked at technology as a strategic driver to growth. We kept looking at technology as an enabler to say, oh, I've stopped using the typewriter, now I use the printer. It's like, oh, now our accounts are all on Tally or all on Zoho, whichever package we are using. But we needed to adapt to a different level of thinking. So that's the one thing about water that I love, that it just kind of, adapts. Second is the fabulous quality of water. At room temperature, it's the most peaceful, calming thing that you can ever have, right? And yet, it is the same water that can convert into steam when needed and can drive an engine and can drive tons of steel. If you just look at water, you'll say this can drive a whole train and can, drive tons of steel. Impossible. But that's the quality of water. It doesn't need to express itself as steam all the time. And that's the same with us. We don't have to constantly be in that frame of mind where we're constantly asserting and being aggressive, if I may use that word. uh, we can step up to the situation when required. And just because we find people who are cool and calm doesn't mean that they don't have the dynamism in them. It doesn't mean that they cannot step up to the situation when required. So that's the other marvelous quality of water. The third is it has the quality of and the property of constantly moving, and especially when we see it. And of course, I'm not now saying this in a scientific way. If you keep water in a glass, it's just going to be still. What I mean is, generally, when we think of water, we think of, moving stream. And movement is the insignia of life. It's true for our external growth, it's true for our internal growth as well. So, water kind of reminds us, in terms of movement. The fourth aspect is that, look at water when it's flowing as a river. It has two abilities. Sometimes it just kind of cuts through a mountain or breaks through, a terrain, and creates and charts its own course. So it's a kind of a pathfinder. And sometimes when it realizes that that boulder or the rock is just too hard to break through, it finds a way around but continues moving ahead. So our ability as entrepreneurs to be pathfinders in the face of a challenging situation or headwind, to break through a situation, or sometimes be intelligent to skirt around the situation and say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to break my head through this, but I'm going to find a way around this. And that's something which, I was marveling at. So these aspects of, water just inspired me. I mean, water and the sun were two elements that really inspire me. And this, Ajit, also, brings us to the question that when we don't uh, stay rigid and when we adapt to the container and take the shape of the container, aren't we compromising? Being adaptable is not compromising. It's just showing our internal ability to handle change in an intelligent manner. Which is why I ended my reflection by saying that our strength will come not from rigidity, but from fluidity.
Amazing. There's also, do you have an example or a situation where you had to be like water? Can you share that with us?
Well, I'm sure all of us in business have had lots of examples. I think COVID was the most recent, one of the most dramatic. There was fluidity right through those 2 years, right from March and April 2020, and it went on for us almost till March 22, where we were making decisions, uh, and all of us did. It's not unique to us, which were uh, unknown areas of experiences. we had to very quickly adapt. So we used to run our business on various softwares, which were all on in the office, because we for years together we would come into the office, somebody would plug on the server, everyone would log in, and end of the day or during the day there would be some backups being taken, and we'd all shut our systems and we'd go home, right? And that's the way we learned how to work the way we did it for years. Overnight we had to sit at home and access that same server, so we had to learn what is remote access, and then we had to learn what it means to put some firewalls and be very careful about that, and how do we do remote backups. None of this is rocket science, but we quickly learned. And then, Ajit, which is something I never thought we would ever do, in 3 months, which would normally take 6 to 8 months for any small business, not even 2 months, we started in Feb and ended in April. We pivoted our entire business onto Zoho, a single platform with multiple applications, whether it be accounting, inventory, CRM, whatever, emails, everything, right? And on the cloud, sitting at home, we still have work from home, even as I speak today in 2024, July 2000, August 2024. We still have work from home. So that to me is just a small demonstration of the kind of fluidity we brought about in the system.
Absolutely. And, as usual for our entrepreneur viewers, as business owners, and what does it really mean adopting a fluid? I mean, you kind of gave us an example of your personal experience. And what the other things that business owners need to keep in mind when how do you set yourself as an entrepreneur and remember that, you gotta be like water, your thought process and your business approach and to reaction to certain situations. Do you have any things that you've read about or that you'd like to share so that it brings more clarity to our entrepreneur viewers?
Yeah, I mean, one quick example that comes to mind metaphorically is a game of chess. I thoroughly enjoy playing chess. We go into the game with certain fixed moves, and very often you're faced with a situation where the opponent plays a move which is different than what you may have expected or prepared for. Now, what do? You cannot continue necessarily with your moves, because if you do that, you run the risk of creating a weakness on the board for yourself. So you have to quickly adapt. And like a game of chess, it's a constantly moving game. I think, and if I could use the example of Toyota, that's the one thing which they have in their system, from whatever little bit I've read. And you asked about, have I read? And I admire that brand. They have a lean manufacturing system, but they also have a very fluid system. And where does that come from? And this is, I think, Ajit, a critical thing. If we anchor ourselves to understanding and believing that there is continuous improvement, then it means that nothing is cast in stone in our business. It's always work in progress. If something is work in progress, then it cannot be so rigid that it cannot change. And if it cannot be rigid, it has to be fluid. So the way we design our systems, whether it be with our equipment and machinery, whether it be with business processes, or whether it be with some of our people policies, we have to think fluidity. We have to think that, listen, I have to keep this fluid, which means if I need this to change, I should not come into an internal problem, right? Uh, Changing people's role responsibilities, cross training people, allowing people to work from home. I mean, these are examples of fluidity. When distribution channels change, our willingness and ability to, for example, quickly move on to the e-commerce platform and say, even though we're selling industrial products, can we not open that as a channel? uh, when we have challenges with customers and dealers, and we find that, look, some of our credit policies are now coming in our way, either in terms of risk or growth, to quickly be able to adapt and change. Software is an example I already spoke to you about. As we speak, we are now in the midst of, I think, one of the most fluid situations in our own business. And I'm not going to speak about the exact thing because it's still a little confidential and work in progress. But we are pivoting the entire business on one of the largest, and I think is one of the largest decisions I would have ever made in the last 40 years of my business career. And I think part of it is coming from just an understanding and a sense of fluidity, right? How does it play out? Maybe you and I need to get back on this podcast a year, 2 years from now and actually talk about, I said this today and what's the consequence. So I think as a business owner, entrepreneur, we have to leave space open for the fact that everything is in a bit of a flux and should be fluid. And the last thing I'd say, Ajit, is our own personal fluidity. The moment I enter my business as an owner and not as one of the leaders, and that's a big difference. The ownership might be mine on paper, but I have to behave as a leader and not as an owner, because as an owner, I'm like, my business, do what I'm telling you. That's rigidity. Leadership is, let's do what the situation demands of us. That's fluidity.
Amazing. So this reminds me also to share some examples while I was actually putting this podcast together. So there are a lot of content around this. One is during COVID, like how Vivek spoke, restaurant owners, fabulous stories where fine dining restaurant owners suddenly became takeaways for survival. They quickly changed their model. You want to take up large examples? You can talk about Netflix, a DVD rental company which saw the onboarding, which saw the live streaming coming, and today is one of the largest live streaming. Or one of the most simple things as entrepreneurs, we are always fighting change, fighting competition. Vivek, in your reflection, you talk about Bruce Lee, and I think that kind of actually gives a perspective to who he was. In his martial arts practice, Lee applied this philosophy by being adaptable in his fighting style. He was never adhering to strictly to any form or technique. He believed in using whatever works best in a given situation, much like how water adapts to its surroundings. And I thought that you speak about it in that reflection, and that kind of sums up for an entrepreneur mindset as to what it means to be like water. What do you say about that?
Yeah. No, I think he was an inspiring figure for all of us who grew up in that generation. Uh, you know, if you see his style of martial art, yes, part of it is his fluidity in the way uh, his talent, but there's a certain calmness about him,
Yeah,
and yet he was the toughest opponent to have, and I think that again is the other essence. Water has a very calming effect, and yet, like I said, it can be steam. So Bruce Lee had that very calm look about him, but he could be the deadliest martial art fighter. And the last thing I'd leave you with, Ajit, in today's podcast is the same water is in your glass, is in a little stream, is in a river, and is in the ocean. The ability to live with humility, whether you're a small, tiny entrepreneur, business owner who's just about started, or you become an ocean of a business, to never lose the basic essence of who we are. That again, water teaches us the humility, and humility can only come with fluidity.
amazing. Well, that's a good note to end our podcast today. That's the time that we have today. We would encourage each of you to not keep these ideas to yourself. Share this episode with your friends, colleagues, and family. Spark a conversation and see where it leads. And we'd love to hear from you too. Join the dialogue on our social media platforms. Share your questions, your learnings, and the insights you gain from this episode. It's through these shared experiences and perspectives that we all grow together and learn. So don't hesitate to reach out and contribute to this ongoing conversation. Your voice matters in shaping a more ethically driven business world. That's it for today, and join us again next week for another enriching episode of Life.ev, where we continue our exploration into the fascinating world of exploring values in our life. Vivek, thank you very much for your invaluable contributions every week. We're looking forward to diving deeper into these critical discussions in our next session. So see you next week, where we will unravel more insights and perspectives that shape our ethical compass. Thank you for listening, and remember to reach out to your friends and get a conversation going on life exploring values. Thank you very much, Vivek. See you next week.
See you, Ajit. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.